Coronavirus anxiety, anybody? I'm wondering if it's affecting you and in some of the ways it's affecting me. I've sort of dealt with a little anxiety over all of this, and I want to share with you my personal experience with it and some of the things I'm doing to try to cope, and hopefully that will be an encouragement to you. So this coronavirus story appeared a few weeks ago, and for me it seemed to be a story affecting people far, far away. But I was intrigued by it, and I was curious about it, and I began to listen to all the stories, and I heard more and more and more stories. But still, I wasn't anxiety-filled until a few days ago when they announced that the schools near us were going to be closed. My church was going to be closed for worship and all of the activities. I would no longer be able to teach the groups that I love to teach, and my social networking was going to come to an abrupt halt, and it began to affect me in a new way. And then I began to hear more and more news stories about the shelves were being emptied at stores, and it was beginning to affect more people in my state. And then I noticed I was waking up in the middle of the night, and I was becoming a little anxious in the middle of the night, and I would reach for my phone to see if there were any updates, and then I couldn't go back to sleep, and I would turn on the television to see what was happening, and I became involved in the 24-hour news cycle, and that began to fill me with some anxiety. And then I began to be concerned about my 94-year-old mother who lives in an independent living home, and I became concerned about her health and well-being and tried to navigate through that and how best to care for her. And then I had this realization that I'm in that category of the elderly. Yeah, my number's right in there. And I began to think in new and different ways about what I needed to do. And I began to ask, how much social distancing am I really supposed to do? And so I began to wonder how in the world I was going to adjust to this new normal. And so I want to share with you for a few minutes about normalization, because that's what we all need right now. We need to find a normal. See, finding our normal is calming to us. See, to make things normal, we need to figure out what we need to do to make ourselves calm. And so how do we do that? Well, first of all, we do need to acknowledge that we are in a stressful situation. We need to acknowledge it. And then we need to wonder and to analyze whether or not the stress we are feeling is a positive stress or a negative stress, because it could be either way. See, what is supposed to happen in these times of a crisis, of a health crisis, is we're supposed to use our stress in a positive way. We're supposed to use it to bring about some change so that we can be effective during the period of stress. So we want to learn to do the positive things that we can do to return our life to some sense of normalcy and bring ourselves calm. So we wonder if that's what we're doing in a stressful time, and I had to examine that. Or are we being negative, dealing with negative stress? And so I'm calling it prohibitive stress. And we do that when we begin to catastrophize about a situation, when we begin to amplify it, when we begin to ruminate about it, when we become filled with worry and anxiety and stress, and we begin to live in that instead of doing the positive things that we need to do in the stress-filled situation. Well, it usually happens that when we are dealing with stress in a negative way, it's often because we have been overstimulated with information. And that seems to be what many people are doing in this current situation. We're overstimulated with information. So what do we do to normalize the stress and to operate with stress working for us instead of against it? So I want to share with you some of the things that I have decided to do. Well, number one, I realized I needed to limit my exposure to the 24-hour news cycle. I needed to decide which news sources I was going to rely on and how much of my day was going to be given to that. So I began to cut down on how much exposure I have had to the news. And then number 2, I needed to make up my mind to be positive and proactive with the information that I have for the situation. And so in order to do that, I needed to look at the situation to see what I've done with the information that I have been given by the news media and health officials and government officials. So these are the things that I have done in that regard. Number 1, I needed to make sure I had the supplies in my home. And we have done that in our home. Number 2, I needed to determine the appropriate level of social distancing and live within those guidelines. I've struggled a lot with that, of how much I need to be around other people and which people to be around. And so I'm struggling with that now, and I'm trying to listen to advice. And so I'm trying to make that decision and then live within those guidelines. And number 3, I am practicing healthy measures of self-care. And that means I'm really trying hard to eat well, to drink plenty of fluids, to exercise. And then for me, it's important to boost the immune system by taking vitamin C and doing elderberry. And many of you may be doing other things to boost your immune system. But taking care of our physical bodies is really important during this time. And then number 4, I've decided to use this time to do positive things and to do things that maybe I've needed to do during this time when I'm not out and about as much. And so I'm trying to do things that will bring me joy. I need to put together a photo album of a recent trip that I took, and I'm going to use this time to do it instead of focusing so much on the news. And then number 5, I needed to find ways to engage with those people that I was going to be missing over the next couple of weeks. I needed to figure out how I was going to be a part of the lives of the groups that I lead, the teachers that I teach, the students that I teach, the groups that I work with. So I decided to do Facebook Live sessions with the classes that I lead this week. So now I'm getting lessons together, and I'm working on plans to do that. Number 6, I think it's important to find the humor and to be able to laugh through situations that we're dealing with. I had 2 opportunities just today to do that. There were 2 people who were unhappy in one of the stores that I was in getting some supplies, and one of them was the clerk behind the cash register, and she was so aggravated. She was mad. She was put there. She wanted to be out on the floor where she could do the things that she knew she could do best, and she really vented with me, and I just tried to pour encouragement into her and support her and empathize and sympathize with her and wish her a really good day. And all the while I'm thinking, you have no business complaining to me. What, you're in a store, you're supposed to be the one that's making the customer happy. But anyway, we worked through that. And then there was another gentleman who rounded the corner just as I did in one of the aisles, and I could just see the expression on his face that he was so frustrated, and he let out this sigh, and he goes, "Oh no." I said, "Oh, what's the matter? Did they not have something you needed?" He said, "You're right, they didn't have it." And I said, "Well, what was it?" And he said, "Toilet paper." And we got a huge laugh about it. I encouraged him. I looked around the store to see if I could find it, and I wished him well. And so we had just that wonderful little shared moment. We were 6 feet away from each other, though. I will let you know that. So we need to practice kindness and find the humor and laugh and be an encourager. And then finally, I want to always remember to focus on my relationship with my Heavenly Father. I want to make sure that each day I'm spending time with Him and reading my Bible and doing those wonderful daily devotions that I've found that I love and mean so much to me, because truly, our Heavenly Father is the great physician, and He is the one who is the lover of our souls and can help us through any situation, even a health crisis like this. And so I hope you will be encouraged by these things I've suggested. And please comment below on some of the things you're doing, some of the strategies you're doing, or tell us a joke, or do something that would be an encouragement to all of us. I hope that you will be blessed today and you will go out and live forward.